right, so we've been assigned our domain by SEO Outsource, and we're going to go ahead and enter that domain here into Namecheap now. So for those of you that haven't registered a domain before, it's very simple, especially through Namecheap. So we're going to search for the domain they assigned to us, confirm its availability, and then we'll just add it to cart. Click View Cart, go to the checkout, confirm order. I do suggest having your auto renew on, and I also suggest doing a WhoisGuard. So WhoisGuard is going to it's going to anonymize your Whois record so that you're not, for the most part, going to get hounded by a bunch of other SEO companies and web design companies that are going to try and sell you a new website because you just registered a domain. So for me, that's one of the core reasons to always have this enabled. It's worth the additional charge per year, even though the first year is free. So we're going to confirm that order. And looks good. We'll check out. Confirm our payment. Everything's chugging a little slow here this morning. And there we go. So this has been purchased, and we can now manage it. So when you're ready to do so, you'll just click the Manage button, or you can access it in your dashboard. You'll be able to manage it as well, and we will cover that in the next video. Alright, for this video we're going to show you how to set up your hosting for your PBNs. We're going to use Host9 because they have a reseller program that will allow us to assign a dedicated IP address per site. So for each PBN we're going to want to have a dedicated IP address. So we're going to go and start the process of ordering this. Previously, in the previous video as well, you'll see that we showed you how to set up a domain address. And what I did is I've gone ahead and done that for this. So your reseller account, you're going to give it a domain that you would use to access it. So in this case, I registered this domain. Assuming that's saved, we'll go ahead and fill out the rest of this information here. Now there is a coupon code that I found for Host9, and it is this, and you'll see it there. It's applied. So Host9 Rocks is the code. And I'm going to go ahead and save this login information. And it's going to send me to PayPal so I can finalize the transaction here. Alright, So now we're set up. All right, now that we've created our hosting with host 9, you're going to get an email similar to this one with different information about your hosting. So follow the URL and the username and password they give you and log into your control panel. Once you're in your reseller central panel, one of the first things you're going to do is set up your package. So since you're dealing with a reseller account, it's important to actually set up packages because it's set up that you would sell different packages to different clients. So even though it's not really important in your case, it's going to be important for others. So if you click create a package, you'll name your package. You're going to set your max disk space. I suggest probably around 1 gigabyte, which you'd put in 1024 in here. For max bandwidth, these are PBNs. They're not going to see a lot of traffic, but it really doesn't matter what we set because we don't think it's going to. So I would just do something excessive. So in that case, for example, if we did 1024 for the max disk space, which would be 1 gig, which is, of course, more than enough, we could do 10 gig here. So just set that to 1024.0 and choose your no software paper theme. That's good. All this is good. Give your package a name. Click create package, and that's all you need to do. That's it for creating the package. All right, so we've created our packages. I said we only need one. It's not super important, and you can always change it later. So now we've created our package. So from here, we'll click Hosting Management, and we're going to create a new account. So click Create a New Account. We'll refer to the domain of our PBN, which will be located in Namecheap. Paste that in there. The username for this account can be, we'll just do something like Art Pro Admin. All right, contact email. Oh, looks like it's a little more limited than that. Let's just do admin70. All right. Contact email, just use your email address. Password, we always do a random password using 1Password. Location, you're going to want to change these up a little bit. You're probably going to want to stick in the country or the origin of where you're from or where you feel like it's most appropriate. But you're not always going to want, you're trying to avoid creating a footprint. So in this case, we'll just go ahead and choose Central. It's already got that package installed. WordPress is there by default. We're going to create that account. All right, so now that we've created the account, the hosting is active for that domain now. The next thing that we're going to have to do with host 9, and this is actually a little more common than you might think with all the hosts, is you have to actually open a ticket to get your dedicated IP address. So you'll click Create a Ticket, and you'll fill in the form or the information here, request the dedicated IP address, and then mention the domain that the dedicated IP address is going to be for, and submit that. So they're going to manually assign that dedicated IP to this host, to this domain, and the way we're going to do the DNS here in the next few steps, it's basically just going to be all automated from that point. You guys won't have to deal with it anymore. Once they change the IP on their end, it's also going to change in the DNS. So you'll create that ticket, and that's pretty much it for the dedicated IP part. Once that's done, it's done. So if we go to Hosting Management, View an Account, we're going to load up the account we just created. Now that we're in the account for our PBN, we're going to pull the name servers from it. So the name servers that we need to have the domain point to are going to be on this screen. So if we go back to Namecheap and we go to manage that domain, we're going to have the option to set our own name servers. So when you're in the domain tab and you're on this page, you'll click where it says Namecheap Basic DNS Now. You're going to choose Custom DNS. This is where you're going to place those name servers at. So if we go back to this page, the account page in host 9, we can copy those name servers over. Okay, so DNS can take time to propagate. So it happens at different speeds, but considering that this isn't necessarily a website launch for a client or anything, we just need to make it work for us for now. So it's doing its thing on Namecheap's side. It's got those name servers installed. So now the DNS records are going to be held at host 9. So what's ever set up in the cPanel account, which we'll get to here in a second, is what's going to work for that domain from now on. So I'll close these here and start this over here. If you go to the cPanel login, this is what you're going to be familiar with basic hosting. So this is cPanel. This is what you'd normally see if you had hosting. So anything you need here, if you need to access, FTP files, any optimizations we are going to do, because there are going to be some server-side optimizations that we might turn on. So we'll get to that here in due time. But for now, what we're going to start with is we're going to install WordPress. So we're going to click the WordPress icon, click Install Now, and what we're going to choose, when you get your domain, you're going to want to run a little bit of metrics on it to see if www version or the non-www version is the best metrics. So it all depends on how it's been used over time before you got the domain. So in this case, we'll just leave it at http://. You can select any of those. The directory, you're going to want to leave this blank. And the reason is just like how it explains here. If we didn't leave it blank, it would add a directory to the URL. So instead of it just going to artproject.com, it would go to artproject.com/WP, and that would be the domain, and of course we don't want to do that. So I generally change all of this stuff when I'm actually in WordPress. So we'll just leave that there, never use admin. Again, we could do something a little different here. So we're going to use email address for the username. For the password, we will set something up again using 1Password. Select this. This is a must-have WordPress plugin, and we of course could install it, but if it's already here, we'll just select that. And then it's going to have you select a theme. Let's check this real quick. Alright, so we're not going to worry too much about this right now either. So we'll select any random theme, click Install. So we're going to change the theme once we get into the WordPress phase. I don't want to cover too much of that while we're just dealing with hosting here. So that's what you're going to do. I'm going to pause the video while this... Never mind. Alright, so that is all done. And that is how you get WordPress and your hosting set up. Alright, so what I'm going to show you here is how to use Majestic to find out the best way to set up your PBN. So what I mean by that is you could have www.artproject.com or just the root rproject.com, or maybe the HTTP version has more power than the HTTPS version. So what we want to do is we want to get our trust flow numbers and citation flow numbers as a reference, and then we'll also look at the external backlinks for it. So in this case, I actually haven't ran it yet. This was another one I was looking at, but so I put in artproject.com, and then we'll hit go here. And it's going to pull the power of it right now. So art-project.com without the www dot is doing a 14 on the trust flow, 6 on the citation flow, and we're showing 58 backlinks. So if I add a www dot here, we're going to see that number changes, and it's actually better. So the backlinks are the same, but we're showing a 16 and a 21 now. So let me see here. So if we do the HTTP, you can see now the trust flow is 24 and 20. So it keeps getting better as we go. So let's try the S version. And that's really the gist of it. I mean, what you're looking to do is trying to decide how you're going to approach your PBN. Are you going to do it www dot? Are you going to set it up in WordPress as that? Is it important to have your SSL cert, because is that the way it's been all these years and that's the way it's built up its power? So you just want to research that and understand it so you can make sure you're putting the most powerful version of your PBN forward. All right, now that we have the hosting done, we have the domain registered, we have the domain pointing to the name servers with our hosting, now the website should be on. And this can vary in time of how long this takes to propagate. So there's lots of different factors here that affect DNS, but in my case, as soon as I did it, it was good to go. So once you go to the website, you're going to get that generic theme that we originally selected. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to log into the WordPress backend, and we're going to do that by adding wp-admin after the domain. So let's go into there. It should bring us to a login screen. We have our login saved in 1Password from earlier. So now that we're in the WordPress backend, the first thing that we're going to do, and this isn't going to be every time, but today a new WordPress update came up that it was updated for a vulnerability issue. So we're going to update WordPress core. So let's see, and we're going to click update now. And this really goes really quick. There's not much to it. Now we're on the latest version of WordPress. Anytime you do any kind of updates or substantial updates especially, I suggest taking a little peek through the website. But then we're going to go to plugins here, and we're going to remove the stuff that nobody wants. And these are those. So you can check mark them and then do a bulk action. So delete, apply, or you can delete them individually. You will have to disable any plugin or deactivate any plugin prior to being able to delete it. But we're going to remove these. And we're going to add a few plugins that we add to every website. Now what we're going to go ahead and do is add the additional plugins that we traditionally use for a PBN. So click Add New under Plugins, and then go to the keyword search. And first we're going to start by adding Add to Any Share. Oops. So we're going to add this plugin, which will add some share buttons, obviously. We're going to do the auto terms of service. That one's pretty self-explanatory. We're going to add backlink saver. This plugin's pretty old, but it still works. It redirects any 301 errors to the home page, basically. So that way those links that are out there floating out there in Google land aren't useless, and they don't provide a bunch of errors. So we're going to add Contact Form 7, which is just a really popular contact form plugin. We're going to add Disable Comments. That essentially disables comments. And we're going to add disable Google Fonts to disable the Google Fonts. Again, some of this stuff seems pretty obvious, but we don't cover it. We personally add Manage WP to every site. So this allows us to manage our PBNs and keep them maintained with an all-in-one dashboard. And I will try and cover that later. We're going to add Show Hide Author. And we're going to add W3 Total Cache. We actually use WP Rocket, but we're going to do this because this is a free one that's out there, and it works great. We just pay for a license for WP Rocket, and that's because we build websites for clients. And then we're also going to add Yoast. So Yoast is an SEO plugin. All right, so those are all added. They're not activated yet, and we're going to leave them inactive until we're ready for them. So I'm going to go ahead and update this. Any plugin that's out of date, you just click Update, and it'll go ahead and update it. So now we're going to go into Themes, and the way you get to Themes is you're going to go to Appearance, Themes. And what we're going to basically do is we just want to make sure that we're going to select a theme that is going to show all of our blog posts on the homepage. That's kind of the goal, is to get a lot of information there. So since our goal is to not create a footprint, we're going to not just want to standardize what theme we use. So let's go ahead and click Add New. And we want a theme that is going to put basically our posts on the homepage. That's kind of the goal here. So we're going to install this one. Most of these free ones are fine. You just want to find one that is really focused around the magazine style WordPress concept. So that one is installed, and then now that's how you install a theme. So next, I'm going to go through how to configure all this stuff. Alright guys, this is where we're going to get into configuring your WordPress install for your PBN. So there's settings for the plugins, there's settings for the theme, and then there's settings that are kind of part of the core of WordPress. And that's what we're going to dive into now. So if you click Settings and General, well, when you click Settings, it automatically brings you to General. We can set the title. In this case, this website, I believe, when it was active, even though we're not necessarily building this for PBN, it's just an example, this was an art blog of some sort. So we'll just refer to this as a Fine Art Informal Blog. And something to do that's related to the niche, maybe a little keyword in there. This title for the website will have a little bit to do with some settings, but we're going to be setting meta titles using Yoast, so that's gonna be more where we focus on that. You also have an email address here you'll set for your administrative purposes. This is what's going to get notified of new user registrations, password resets, things like that. So we can just leave that as is. Most of the stuff can really just be left as is, since its purpose here is a PBN opposed to a traditional website. So we want to make it look like a traditional website, but we don't have to get into all the fine details. You know, PBN should be quick to set up for the most part. So we're going to want to set up a default post category. What we're going to do is we're going to jump over to here for a second. Post categories. We're going to create a category. We'll just call it, fine art. And we'll create that category. And then we're going to go back to settings, writing, and then change that category to fine art. The rest of this is not going to be useful to you. Save changes. Just thumb through reading real quick, make sure we're in latest post, that's what we want. All the default stuff should be fine for most of this. So we're going to go down to permalinks. Permalinks is kind of an important one. So you'll see how it's showing day and name. There's all kinds of different structures for permalinks. The one you really want is post name. So this is the most important in effective SEO because you want the URL to contain keywords as well. So if you've got a blog post that's on topic of fine art, you want it to be /fine-art- whatever as part of your URL. And having the permalink structured post name is how you're going to accomplish that. So set the post name, save changes, and that's about it. So that's really the core of what we're going to set up with WordPress. All right, so in this step, we're going to start activating and configuring our plugins. So let's just start at the top, and we're going to activate the Add to Any Share button. Like we talked about when we were adding it, this plugin is to add share buttons along the website, and this is just going to make it appear more as a regular website to Google. We want to appear as organic and as natural as possible. So plugin's active, we can just click Settings. And let's see here. Everything by default, I believe, is pretty good to go, but we're just going to thumb through it here. Everything is how we want it. So that's all that's to it with that plugin. We're just going to go ahead and move on right away. Well, let's check the floating here. Make sure that's set up right. A lot of this is going to be by default. Okay. Yeah, this is fine. Okay, so we're going to go to the plugins again. And let's move on to the next one. So we're going to activate the Auto Terms of Service plugin. Skip that for now. All right, so we want to turn this on. Enter some of these fields. So it's going to be pretty generic. We don't have a perfect name for this, but we're just going to call it Art Project Inc. And that should be fine. And then kind of a smaller version of it. Just a standard. Then we're going to do the possessive, which will be like Art Projects. And then artproject.com, official website. All right. Venue, state of we can do that. Doesn't really matter. I'll just leave it like that. So it's really generic information. We're just trying to appear natural. So we're going to click Save. All right, so we got that saved. All right, and then we're going to move on to the next plugin. There is another thing we're going to do with those yet. If you notice, I'll just go back into it real quick. There's short codes here, so we're going to utilize these short codes as when we're ready to use them. So I just wanted to point that out, that even though we're done setting it up, we're not done necessarily using the plugin. So moving on, activate backlink saver. And this pretty much is an autopilot plugin. So we're not going to worry too much about this one right now. Let's go ahead and activate contact form 7. And what we're going to do, once that's active, we can go in the settings and just double check things. All right, so in here, we're going to create a generic contact form. And there's really already a generic one in play. The only thing that we need to do is send the form somewhere. So send it to your default. I don't foresee you having a lot of contact coming from here, except for spam and stuff, which we'll try and avoid, which we'll install another plugin for that I think we may have missed. But for the most part, again, this is a lot of this stuff works out of the box for our use because it has a general way of working, and that's really what we're trying to utilize in this. So go to the plugins list, get ready to do the next plugin. All right, we enabled the disable comments plugin. We're going to click settings and go through these. And we're going to want to disable comments everywhere. We don't want people commenting on it. So one of the main things to consider with comments, at least the way I see it, is we want our money site to be one of the only 2 links that are coming off of this. And if you have people commenting and you get a lot of spam comments, it could easily get a lot of backlinks coming from your PBN, which will defeat the purpose of what we're trying to accomplish here. So it's something to keep in mind of why we want to have no comments working at all. So now we'll activate disable Google Fonts. That one doesn't really require anything to it. We're going to skip Manage WP because this is going to be the last thing we do. We're going to go to Show Hide Author and get that one enabled. Show Hide Author is in, it's under Plugins. So even though there's not a settings here, it puts it under the Plugins category. So just click Show Hide Author, and out of the box, this is how you want it to look. Posts and pages set up, and that's all it's to it. We're good to go. So we're going to go to Install Plugins. Go to the next plugin. This one sometimes requires a little more configuration, so let's take a look here. It's active. Let's go into the settings on it. All right. We're going to enable page cache. Going to enable minify. And we're just, the things that we enable here, we're just going to want to check these later to make sure everything is jiving all right on the website. All right, save all settings. And then let's go back to plugins. Then we're going to activate Yoast. Now that Yoast is activated, we're going to go inside the settings here. We're going to confirm all of our features first. So we're going to want advanced setting pages marked. That's about it in here. That should be fine. We're not going to do too much with that right now. And that's all good. Okay. So let's save all of our settings, anything that we've changed. And go to titles and metas. What I suggest doing for the title separator is, even though a lot of people talk about things being based on character count for your title tags, it's actually kind of based on pixel count. And believe it or not, you can get a little bit extra sometimes by selecting this as your title separator than the others. So go ahead and enable that. Let's check how this looks. That looks fine. That looks good. All right. Yep. Most of this is fine by default. All right. I'm not going to worry too much about social. The sitemap is important. So we're going to make sure our sitemap is looking good here. Not going to exclude anything. Okay, so sitemap is good. All right. Okay. All right, so Yoast looks like it's set up fine. So I think that's it for plugins. If that's the case, we're going to go ahead and move into customizing the theme. So you're going to hover over Appearance and then go to Customize. That's fine. No big deal there. We can even leave that. All right. So this theme is pretty basic, so there's not a lot to worry about with it. What we are going to want to do is we're going to create a generic post. And in this case, since we don't have, this is just an example, we'll just do something, things to consider when purchasing fine art. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pump a whole bunch of lorem ipsum in here. And then we can go to Pixabay and get ourselves a free photo to use on here. All right, so sure, this will work. So we're going to take this photo, free for commercial use. All right. Go back here, go to our featured image. All right, so we're also going to add a video on here, and this is suggested with any PBN we do. We're going to want some kind of video that's relevant to the topic. Okay, we'll just go ahead and grab this one. Get your embed link, copy this, Throw it in the bottom here. But don't do what I just did. You actually want to take this and throw it in your bare text. And publish. So we've got our first article in here. Let's go ahead and take a look at what the page is looking right now as results. So there's the name of the blog, search box. We don't have really any menu yet because we're about to get to that. We're also going to do a couple of things here on the side. But you can see here's our YouTube video. Here's our featured. Here's the share buttons we did. Here's the generic, comes with every WordPress website. We're going to have to remove this as well. But so here's our first post. So what we're going to do is, I'm also going to show you, we don't want to publish the post as ourselves. So let's go ahead and create a user. And we'll just call the user Fine Artist. And then we can give, you can just do something generic. You really don't plan to get anything from it. So you can just do admin projet.com. And this user's core responsibility, the whole reason we're going to have him here, is when we go back to our posts. Let's trash the Hello World post while we're in here. All right, we're going to go back to our post, and I'm going to show you, if you click screen options up here, it's going to show the author option. So click that. And what we want to do is we want to select the author to be this guy. So now our name's not up here with our admin name. Here is where we would set our meta information. So you can edit the snippet if you decide to. As you can see right now, by default, what it's doing is it's taken the post title and it's taken the blog title. And that was that character we selected earlier to try and give us just a hair more space. Could be rumor even. But that's what I've been taught. So the meta description you enter here and save your post. That's about all you're going to do with this. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create a couple of pages. And these pages are going to be for the privacy policy, the terms of service, and then the contact page. So there's a sample page in here already. We're going to trash that. Add new. Contact us. Publish it. Add new. Privacy policy. Publish that. Add another new one. And we're going to do terms of service. Terms of service. Now we need to go grab our short codes. So we're just going to basically be throwing a short code on each page. So if you go to, we'll just go to plugins. That's the easiest way to get to it. We're going to go to plugins. We're going to go to the auto terms of service. And we're going to grab the my terms of service copy short code, copy it, and then the way that I'll do this is I'll hover over pages, all pages. I'll right click and do a new tab, so that way I can stay in here and have the tab open at the same time. So we're going to go to our, which one did I copy? We'll just do it again. So we're going to copy the terms of service, go to terms of service, and then we're going to enter this short code here. Now that page is going to have the information from that short code. So we'll go to all pages. Now we're going to grab the privacy policy one. I have too many tabs open. Let's go to privacy policy. Add the shortcode. Update that. Now we're going to do the same thing for contact form 7. So we're going to go to contact form 7. Go to contact forms. Here's your shortcode. So we're going to copy this shortcode. Go to our contact page. And then we're going to add the shortcode here. So now those pages are created. We're going to want to go to Appearance and Menus. We're going to want to create the menu to get to all these pages. So create the menu. Display is going to be primary menu. And that's pretty much all it's to that. So now if we go back to our page here that we've been working on, you're going to see that menu's there now. So we've got the menu. If you click Contact Us, there's going to be that contact form. If you click Privacy Policy, here's a privacy policy. So those plugins are essentially creating all the content for this, asks us a couple of questions, and automatically fills it in. Then that shortcode is connecting that information and placing it on that page. And then we go back home. So next what we're going to do is we are going to edit the widgets. So there's a few widgets that we're going to want to do on here. I'm going to tweak a couple of things. So I like to get rid of this. I'm not too worried about archives. We can leave search. It's not a big deal. It's not worth taking off. We're going to add the share, and then we're also going to add the calendar. And then as soon as you add these, they automatically save that they're going to be on the widgets page. So now if we go to reload this page, all right, maybe we just got to clear the cache. Okay, so, and I'll show you that here in a second. So you can see all of our widgets are how we have them set up now. So what happened is since we have the cache plugin running, what I did was cache. So if you ever run into a situation where you're working on something and it's not reloading and refreshing, you want to make sure your cache is cleared, which is what we just did here. Now there's a couple more plugins that we're going to install here, and one of them is going to be WP Bruiser. And it's an anti-spam plugin that works very well. And let's get that added here. So we're going to install that. And then the last one we're going to do is we're actually going to upload a plugin. It's actually pretty old, and it's not even available on the market anymore, but it works very well for what we're trying to do, which is get the site re-indexed. So the way I did this, and I should probably show you here, is I'll bring you to the page. WordPress's plugins are in a repository that's available online as well as in their search. And WordPress is kind of cracking down on what's available for people so they're not breaking their website. In our case, we know exactly what we're doing, why we're doing it. So we're going to download this. And now I'll have 2 copies in my downloads. But I'll show you. We're going to click Upload Plugin, choose the file, and we're going to upload that plugin. Click Install Now. And let's just go ahead and activate it. So what this plugin is going to do is it's going to create a Google XML sitemap for the video that we've added. and it's a way to help get the site indexed on Google. So if you go to site : and then do our domain, we're going to see it's not indexed. It's not on there. So let's see. Again, this is sometimes they don't have the settings on the plugin itself, and you have to actually go hunt for it. And you got to do everything by memory here. So we're going to go to the video sitemap, include video link, not recommended, generate video sitemap. So now we've pinged Google with that sitemap, and that's kind of the whole point of that plugin. So it's done its purpose. We're going to go ahead and get rid of it. I don't like how old it is. It just works still. So we're going to deactivate it. We're going to even go as far as just delete it. It's not supported. We don't want it. So let's go ahead and activate WP Bruiser. And there that is, okay. First thing we're going to do, go to the bottom. It's going to automatically detect the proxy header. Click Register Header. And then go to Security. And we're going to automatically block IP addresses that are trying to brute force the site. We're going to block web attacker IPs. We're going to block anonymous IPs. We're going to do all that. Click Save Changes. Go into WordPress. We're going to protect the login form, lost password, registration, and comments. Even though we've got comments disabled, we're going to protect them. And that's about the gist of that. So what we're going to do next here, I doubt this would have gone through that quickly, but you never know. Now, so this can take up to 24 hours before you're actually going to see the domain index. So let's close out of that, close out of that. So technically we're in really good shape right now. We're live. And now what I'd like to do is I'd like to add this to our managed WP. So we're going to go ahead and go to manage WP. Managed WP is a platform that allows you to maintain and manage your websites. And we use it on a very high level scale to manage all of our client websites. And we do it on kind of a lower scale for our PBNs. So this is one of the PBN. This is a PBN we have. And I just created this as an example for this so you guys weren't looking at all my websites and we can kind of organize this. So we're going to add this website to it. So earlier we had that Manage WP plugin and we did not enable it. We did not activate it. And right now what we're going to do is activate it, because if it sits too long it just kind of gets, it stops looking. So got that there. We're going to grab our domain while we're sitting here, pump it into here, and it's gonna see the heartbeat from that plugin that we just activated. And it's going to know that we're trying to get those two to talk to each other. Alright, so that went ahead and connected, added it, done. I'm going to go into the settings here, and what I just showed you guys was that tag where I clicked PBN. So this is how we organize it. If you go into the settings, and then you can actually assign it a tag, make it PBN. So you can look at all just your PBNs. One thing to consider, and it depends on your budget for your PBNs, I suppose, but to me it's worth it. You want to activate backups. And Managed WP is going to automatically do a backup. It's going to drop on their servers. No futzing around with Dropbox and what have you. It's $1.60 a month. It all depends on how you want to do it. This is what we do for backups. You don't essentially want to lose all the work you just did. You don't want to have to recreate it and have your PBN offline. So activating the backups can be worth it. But this is how we do this. And what happens is when you go into the site on Manage WP, you're going to see any updates you have here. You're going to see any theme updates you need here. And you'll be able to update these on the fly. One thing I suggest, I mentioned earlier, is whenever you do any updates, you want to go through it and make sure nothing's broken. So, sometimes CSS can break and sometimes shortcodes can break, and you want to make sure everything's still working after your updates. So this is how to get your PBN online, and that's about it. It's not overly complicated. I mean, we just basically covered everything. So if you have any questions, please reach out.